Hello. Oh, there we go. Hi,
Hello.
guys. Today we are joined by Sandra, and you're.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, you should honestly say hello. This is going to be the most chaotic episode ever. But hi, guys. Welcome to What Are You Doing, Dem? With me, your host, Dem. Like I just said 20 seconds ago, I'm here with Sandra, and she's one of my best friends. We've known each other forever. Yeah, you can say hi. I'm just going to keep yapping.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. I love this woman with everything in my soul, so very excited for your new business venture.
Stop. I sound like Tokyo Tony. Okay.
This is this is your Tokyo Tony's trucking, dude.
I'm gonna lose my mind. Okay, stop making me laugh. I have to lock in. Okay, guys. Yeah, as you can see, Sandra and I are very chaotic, so this will be a chaotic episode, but it's going to be a fun one because today's episode is Boundaries 101. No is a complete sentence. Basically, we're just going to talk about setting boundaries in all aspects of life. So, from like dating, friendships, work, family. Sandra's really good at setting boundaries. I'm getting better.
Not always.
Yeah,
Not
not all,
always.
but like 80% of the time you are.
Yeah, 80% is a good percentage.
Yeah, I'm like good at setting boundaries like 45% of the time, which is dismal.
In
It
progress.
is. It's a work in progress, and I feel like I've gotten better. Like I got better the last year and a half, especially last year cuz so many I'll get into that later. There's so many people that, really tried to take advantage of me. But if I had $1 for every time I let something slide when I should have said no, I could buy like, I don't know, a home, a yacht, a small plane.
I would be honestly, I think I would be Jeff Bezos. Like I just the amount of times it has happened to me, it's sickening and it's sad, but you know, it's a it's
Not
a
you
part
would
of
be
life.
Jeffrey
So
Bezos,
I would be Jeffrey
please.
Bezos. If I had $1 for every single time a man took my kindness as an invitation to be delusional, I would be so wealthy.
Honestly, same. Hate that for us. Did you ever, like, have you ever been, are you a people pleaser?
I
Like,
was like when I was like God, when I was like 19.
yeah,
And
because
then
I,
I did yeah, I mean, I used to do that, and then I was given every reason not to do that anymore, so, now
that's
we're
so
here.
interesting. I never met you as a people pleaser, so I can't conceptualize you being a people pleaser. I feel like you met me as a people pleaser and you're like, "Bitch, what are you doing? Stop. Stop. Stop."
No, because like, I know that when I met you,
Mhm.
I remember just being like, "You need to stand up, like, please," and I think it was because, like,
Oh
I
my
don't
god.
know, like, I wouldn't say I was always like a I wouldn't say I was ever a people pleaser, but
Yeah.
I definitely had my moments where I really just wanted the people around me to be happy. And it kind of got to a point where I was like, why am I doing this if I'm not happy? Like, if
Yeah.
who cares if everyone else is happy? Like, what am I doing? Because I'm not, first of all, I don't know how I can be a people pleaser when like no one is around me is pleased. But like, second, second of all, like, I,
Please.
I wasn't happy. I wasn't,
Yeah.
so what's the point of pleasing other people if I can't even do it for myself?
No, that's so smart. I wish I had that clarity like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but I didn't. Did you have like a wake-up call moment when you're like, I need to get some boundaries, like I need a backbone, I need to stand up?
I think it was everything kind of mixed into one. I just realized that, and it was not just relationships. I mean, it was family, it
Mhm.
was friends, it was,
Yeah.
constantly people expecting me to be there when they
Mhm.
wanted me to be there. And, I would find myself, pushing things that I wanted to do aside or, my own happiness to do that.
Mhm.
And it kind of just got to a point where I was like, why am I doing this?
Stop, because that's so real. I feel like I definitely had a moment, this moment. I'm never gonna name names of people, but when I was in my weird situationship circa 2020, with that person. Guys,
Yeah.
well, this could be a whole different episode, but I was, like, in a weird situation with this person, and we had kind of fizzled out, like, Sandra and I were just talking about it, like, women do this thing where you mentally detach before you guys stop speaking, and I'd kind of already been there, but me and this person got into, like, a huge fight, like, we weren't even really situationshiping anymore, and they were like I don't wanna say it, it's so embarrassing.
No, you have to. You have to you have to bare your soul right now.
They were basically just like you act like a doormat, and I was like, "What the fuck? Like, who says that?" That set me off. I have anger management, kind of, not really. Like, I don't really get angry, but that really set me off, and I went off on them even though it was kinda true, and I feel like that was my wake-up moment because I was such a big people pleaser, and I just kept thinking like, "Oh, like, if I do this for, like, this person, everything will be fine," and, I had this inability to say no, and it was all about approval seeking and imagining, oh, if I say no to this person, they won't love me or they won't like me anymore and I'll lose that relationship. And that was just, it wasn't good. And I like that wake up call. Was it awful? Yes, but it was definitely good. And since then, I feel like I've been a lot firmer on my boundaries and kind of like letting people go if they don't like what I'm saying. Like, you can leave. It's fine. I'm good.
I mean, being called a doormat is definitely traumatizing.
No, I was like,
That would ruin that would ruin my year.
no, that was wild.
Um, no, that was insane because I remember when it happened and I gasped. I was like, I had my hand over my mouth. Like, I was like,
I
"There's no
had my
way."
hand over I was just like, when I tell you nobody's ever shocked me into silence before, and we were, like, teasing each other, like, it wasn't even like we were, like, in a full-blown fight. I was like, "Yeah, like, you're this," and I don't remember what I said, like, just, like, joking, so I'm just like, "You're a doormat," and I was like, "Oh, oh, oh,
I mean, I think
me?"
it's important to keep in mind that when you have boundaries and
Yeah,
when you have, like, principles that you're standing on, people that respect you and people that actually like you,
mhm,
they're not gonna see that as a bad thing. And
yeah,
I think that's always been hard for me too, because I feel like I'm a very, confrontational person, and I do have that thought in the back of my head of like, "Oh, am I coming off too strong?" Or, "Is this gonna upset the person that I like?"
mhm,
And I think I always try to remind myself that the person that I am meant to be with, whether it's like a relationship or friendship or whatever, they're not gonna see that as a downside. They're not gonna
yeah,
see it as like a weakness. They're not gonna be, they're not gonna run for the hills because if
yeah.
someone is running for the hills off of like principles or boundaries that you have, they just don't.
That's so true. But, like, it's weird. I'm definitely a lot more strict now when it comes to my romantic boundaries and relationships, but I think sometimes with my friends still, I almost feel guilty. Like, do you ever feel guilty setting boundaries with friends? Or not really? Because sometimes I'll feel guilty, like, I wonder if it's coming across bitchy. I'll still do it, but, like, I just feel like I take more pause than I do with romantic
I mean, I think
relationships
it's
now.
easier to feel guilty when it's a friend just because it's like, yeah, like you said, I don't want to be rude and I don't want it to
Yeah.
seem like I'm like angry. But I think, especially when it comes to friends, it's always coming from, a place of like love almost. It's
Mhm.
coming from a place of like, I care and I want you to understand how I feel. And I hope that we can meet in the middle
Yeah,
instead of me just being like, oh, I'm being an asshole.
exactly. And sometimes it's okay to be an asshole. I feel like I'm also coming to terms with that, and that's okay. Or if people think I'm an asshole. Um, I'll go into like a different, like not a really different segment, but like kind of on people pleasing because I know when I posted, like I did like a little post talking about this episode, and people are like, "Oh, like I'm struggling. I'm kind of a people pleaser. It's something that I'm working on." And I think you're taught to be a people pleaser, right? Like I believe it's like a childhood thing, not to be too assertive. If you do this, you get this reward. It's probably something people learn very early on. And I think people
Mhm.
pleasers obviously struggle the most with boundaries. So unlearning that is really strange as an adult. Have you, like, what was something that you did to unlearn people pleasing?
I mean, I think for me, just realizing that maybe this is gonna sound a little dumb, but, like, realizing that life goes on.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy before you do something like that to be like, "Oh, like, what if this happens? Or what if that
Yeah.
happens? Or, what if this derails everything?" And it's like, every single time I've done something that's been hard or, I've asserted myself or, I've set in place a boundary, like, it's been fine. I'm here now. Nothing that bad has happened, like,
Yes.
so I think honestly, it's really just about just doing it and, like, diving in head first because
Mhm.
there's really no way to dip your toe into just saying no. Like,
Yeah.
no is no, and, it's okay to just say, "I just don't want to." Um, and, kinda like what I said earlier where it's like, if someone respects you, they're not gonna get upset. If you have a boundary and someone gets upset with you, they just don't respect your boundaries.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I feel like I used to doomsday prep. I do this, like, everything falls apart, like, such black and white thinking, like, there's no in between. The more I did it and nothing bad happened, I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's not that bad." And I think also for me, the more I said no or set my boundary, I'm an anxious person in general, like, I'm just super anxious. I felt such relief in saying no that it was like, this is, like, a good thing, like, this is almost like self-care, is being able to be like, "No, don't do that," and that was a big thing for helping me unlearn or while I'm still unlearning my people-pleasing tendencies.
I think it's good to be, very, like, sure in yourself because I think
Mhm.
there's that level of, like, I don't know, like, power in your ability to do that, Like, I
Yeah.
think it helps with your confidence. I think it helps in every aspect, like, not even just relationships, but, you need that everywhere. You need it when you're working, you need it with your friends, you need it with, strangers. Like, you're gonna need that always, and so
Mhm.
the ability to do that is so helpful, and it's just gonna help you in
Yeah,
the long run.
it really will. It really, really will. Even in work, because like, I've had very chaotic jobs where if I'd set my boundary early and I regret not setting boundaries very early on at work because it was a shit show later on, and, like, there were certain companies where I knew the exact moment where if I'd said something or, like, gone to HR or reported it directly or written something, all my like, I just knew it was gonna be an issue later, and I didn't, and then when the time came, I just regretted not, kind of setting myself up for success in that way. So, yeah, super important in all aspects.
Yeah.
But with dating and boundaries, I feel like you're the guru on dating boundaries because you historically set them very well, and you're very strict, very stand on business-esque. I'll ask you a couple of questions, but yeah, I just wanna, like, have you tell us, as listeners, a little bit more about your dating and boundaries, stuff like that.
Okay. So
Why'd you sound scared?
my because is a tricky subject for me. I mean, really, it's just about, I think I've been in a lot of relationships where, in the past where I did
Mhm.
not feel respected. I didn't feel listened
Yeah.
to. I didn't feel like I was it's like it always felt like I was in a car, but
Mhm.
like I was in my own car. I just wasn't driving it. And I was just getting fucking derailed all the time. And
Stop.
I'm
I
sitting
love
there
that
being like, what
analogy.
is happening to me?
Yeah.
And that was insane to me because I'm like, this is my life. This is my
Mhm.
relationship. Like, why am I sitting here, scared and confused? And I don't know if this person likes me and I don't know if they respect me. Like, that is an
Mhm.
insane way to feel in a relationship, in any
Yeah.
relationship ever. And I think it's been so important for me to just realize that it's okay to just let people do that and remove myself. I don't want to stay somewhere where, I'm not wanted. I don't want to stay somewhere where I'm not respected because it's
Yeah.
like if you can't if you can't respect me at the start, I
Mhm.
have absolutely no faith that you're going to respect me a year in when you're when you're comfortable and you think shit's sweet and you stop making the effort. So if you're, you know, if day one, while you're still trying to impress me, while you're still trying to like do your big one and show me what a good guy you are, if you can't even respect me then, that terrifies me.
It's so
That
true.
genuinely scares
It's like
me
we're
because it's like,
starting
what
off
is
so
wrong with
fucking
you?
weak.
Yes, like this is such an awful start. Like this is
Yeah.
gonna be horrible.
Honestly, I agree, and that's, like, usually my teller relationship-wise. I'm like, if this is the beginning and, like, I love being love bombed, that's, like, a whole different section. I know it's not good, but, like,
Uh,
if we not the ugh, like, you know this about me. Like, I love being love bombed. If a man doesn't love bomb me at the beginning, I'm kinda like, "Oh, what's going on?" Like, Anyway, that was such a tangent, but even within, like, the because I know love bombing is bad, but even within that, like, honeymoon period where, when you're, like, obsessed with each other and you're spending time, just if stuff starts to feel
yeah.
weird or I'm like, "Oh, I feel like like, I don't know, just the vibes are off," I usually will unsubscribe really quick because it's only gonna go downhill, and I'll put up with a lot for the sake of the plot and yeah, just the sake of the
Yeah, you
plot.
gotta do it for the lore sometimes,
Yeah, but
honestly. You need to
sometimes
do
my
it
lore
for
is
character building.
like I'm tired of building my character. I need to like lock in, which is what I have been doing. And again, hopefully we can help people because I know a lot of we're not on our own little island. So many of my female, even some of my guy friends, like have this issue. And I think if people set their boundaries and their intentions very early on in relationships, it would just go smoother. It would just be easier. And people are afraid to ruffle feathers, so they don't want to do that. But like okay, question for you. What's the most absurd, like, dating boundary you've had to set? And, like, absurd can be anything, like, where you're just like, "Why did I even have to say this?" Or it actually was a strange boundary.
Oh, I have a good one,
I'm scared.
honestly. Requesting not even requesting, like, I didn't even
Uh-huh.
keep talking to this man, but, like, having to look a man in the face and be like, "Hey, why are you paying for OnlyFans?" Insane, sickening, foul.
I'm
Like,
scared. Did you actually?
yes.
What was his response?
Well, it's not like it's basically just like porn. And I'm like, "No, it's not." But,
Not.
like, what are like, you are spending your money on this, like, I and even if, like now that I know this, we can't go back.
Yeah.
Like, even if you stop paying for it, like, I know that you were doing that. And not only that, but, like, while we're dating. Like, you didn't think in your little fucking pea brain, you didn't think for 2 seconds that that was, like, a bad idea? Like, you didn't think that that was just weird?
I'm genuinely so shocked. I don't know why I'm
Absurd.
shocked, but, like, truly absurd. Because I have a friend, I think she like, one of my friends told me, she's like, "Yeah, like, she found out her man was, like, paying for OnlyFans, but he was, like, also messaging all of them." Like, so he did, like I think you have to, like, tip. Do you have to tip to send message he
Oh,
just,
that's
like
sick
he was
work.
messaging them, and they're just, like,
You would
airing
have
out
to
his
throw
fucking
me off a
messages.
boat with a
Like
fucking, like, brick tied to my ankle. Like, I would be sick.
So no, because I was like, "Babe, that's" she was like, "It's even worse because like, they don't want him, like, he's literally paying them and giving them all and they still,
Uh,
like, they're not, like, curving
God,
the
that's like when
messages,
you
like,
get in your
don't want the
man's phone
cash.
and you see that he's, like, wishing Lil Uzi a happy birthday. Like, it's just so humiliating. Oh my
Fucking Lil
gosh.
Uzi. Your bro's like at Drake cakes and candles.
That's so no, because what's even worse is not even that like, it's already bad enough that you're on
Yeah,
OnlyFans. It's even
yeah.
worse that you're just getting ghosted by women that you're giving money to. Like, you're giving them money and they still don't wanna talk to you, and that's the worst part. Like, you could give me that money and I would talk to you. Like, I don't know why you're giving this to some strange woman that won't even message you back. Like, that first of all, to your friend,
Yeah,
please just
I
no.
yeah, I wish her the best.
Enough.
I wish her the best, like,
Wish
nothing but the best.
stay strong because you're stronger than me.
No, for
I would
sure.
scream and
Because
cry and
it
throw up.
hasn't been, like, a one time it's been, like, a recurring fight. Like, he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm stopping," then he won't stop. So, yeah, again, that's a boundary. I think that would
That's
be
an
a hard no for
addict.
me. If that happened to me, I'd just be like, "I honestly wish you and blonde Barbie 365 the best. Go off, king."
Yeah,
And I'd
no,
opt
like
out.
have fun with her and I'm gonna go do literally anything else. Like, that's definitely, like, the most absurd boundary I've set,
Interesting. That is an
just
absurd
being
one.
like, "This is gross. I am leaving." Like, I
The
can't.
audacity. The audacity is, yeah. That's a good one. Hmm. I don't really know. None of mine, I don't think I've set any boundaries that have been like super absurd. Honestly, I can tend when I enter into situationships, I'm gonna call them situationships. I tend to get kind of avoidant because like they are they're situationships, and I feel like this one dude just kept blowing up my phone. It was when I still lived in New York, and like I was busy in New York. Like I was working like a big office like corporate job and like a big girl job and traveling and stuff. It's just like being whiny, and I think that was like an absurd boundary that I felt like I had to set, be like, "Hey, like I need you to not pester me if I don't respond to you." And like I can be whiny about response time. So it's just like as a man, why are you crying in my messages? Cause like I was on a flight and I didn't respond for 2 hours. So like to me
No,
that was absurd.
genuinely, because, like, get a hobby. Like,
Yeah.
hit the fucking oil rig. Like,
And it
I
gave me
don't
the
know
ick.
why.
I was
Yes, because it's like, go do something. Like, read
yeah,
a book, get a
literally
hobby, do a
anything.
course or a course. Like,
Literally
just do
of
something that
course.
doesn't
Of
involve, like,
course.
do like, get on Khan Academy. Like, I don't know why you're sitting here texting me nonstop. 'Cause it's juvenile is what it
Yeah.
is. Because
It
it's like,
felt yeah.
I have a job and I have a life. What are you doing? What are you doing that you can't leave me alone for 2 hours? Because
No,
clearly
that's
it's
how I
nothing and
felt.
you need to get a hobby.
Yeah, it just felt very like again, I don't mind like I don't need to be in constant communication, especially I have kind of like an anxious avoidant attachment style. So as soon as I feel kind of secure in it, I don't need constant communication. And like I like to call and like like for like long distance, like I'll call you, I'll FaceTime you, whatever. Like we can hang out. But I just it was so scary and he was so like bitchy and whiny and guys still do it to this day. Like if someone's trying to get to know me, I don't know, like where I'm now, like people like be like, "Oh, can I get your Instagram?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'll go out and like see them out, say hey, whatever, post on my stories. And if I don't respond to like every single like heart react or whatever, they'll be like, "Oh, so like that's how you are? Like you don't say like you're stuck up." I'm just like, dude, like fucking chill. I
It's
think
the
that's such
sassy
a
man
yeah,
apocalypse.
very sassy, and sometimes I like a sassy man, but, like, some of them like, sometimes go to war, like, learn to build
Yeah, it gets to
something.
a point. Like, get a gunshot wound, come
Yeah,
back, like, be stronger for it. Like, I
no,
don't know,
okay.
but
A
figure it out.
gunshot wound.
Like it's just go learn how to change a tire and then come back cuz like I can't. It gets to a point. I love a sassy man, but it's like if you're going sass for sass with me, that's kind of when I'm like, "Okay, queen. Like enough is enough. You need to stop. This is sick."
But, yeah, I'm just like, "Oh, okay, sorry, didn't mean to offend you, sis, like, my bad."
Bye, not sis.
No, it's just like,
That's so fucking funny. I have a question for you actually.
"Oh, okay, what is it?"
So, what is a dating red flag that people ignore because they don't want to seem high maintenance? Like, in your experience, what is a
Hmm.
red flag that you have just completely, blown by because you did not want to seem like you were high maintenance or a bitch?
Hmm. Okay, this is, like, just a personal it's, like, like, a personal one for me, but when I am like, getting to know someone, like, in a talking stage or whatever, and we're at like, I'm asking them questions about themselves or even on a date, and I'm like, "Oh, like, what do you like to do?" Just, like, like, questions you ask people, it shows that you have interest. When people don't ask me those questions back sometimes, I like, it always ends up being a red flag, first of all, because like, obviously, you're not that interested, but I think it's one that I've let go sometimes. 'Cause I'm like, "Oh, like, maybe, maybe I'm not as forthcoming," which I know I can be a bit, like, of a hard shell to crack. Is that the saying? Hard egg to crack? Whatever.
A tough cookie.
Yeah. I can be whatever the fucking saying is. So I feel like I used to give people a lot of leeway even though it bothered me, and, like, that's kind of a boundary I have now where if, like, a guy isn't like, if you're showing no interest in asking me questions about myself, it's kinda like an ick, like, it's kind of like a boundary, and I'll mention it, like, I'll say it, like, I won't be like, "Oh, man, you don't ask me any question about myself," but, like, I'll kind of, like, mention it once subtly, and if you don't pick up the
Mhm.
hints, obviously, like, you don't care, and remembering little things, like, my love languages are, like, gifts and acts of service, 'cause I'm just a girl, but if I tell you something, like, if I tell you it's my fucking birthday, like, a day before my birthday and you don't wish me happy birthday, like, you're done, like, that's, like, a weird I don't know, it's just, like, those are, like, definitely things that I let go in the past because I was like, "Oh, they're probably busy," or it just didn't occur to them, but, like, you have fucking common
No one is
sense,
that
like
busy.
yeah, like, you're not that busy.
No one's ever that busy.
And it ends up making me do a thing where I end up going tit for tat, like, match their energy, which is fine, sometimes match their energy, but, like, I don't wanna do that all the time, like, that doesn't serve me, it disrupts my peace, actually, so I kind of just
I
opt
just wanna
out.
be me.
Yeah.
I just wanna be me. Like, I don't wanna I think the thing that really fucks with me is that I don't wanna dull myself down to meet you in
Yeah,
whatever fucking pit you're in, you know? Like,
yeah,
if you are just a freak and you're not bringing the energy and
yeah,
you aren't talkative and you're weird, like, I don't wanna sit there and be like, "Oh, well, let me match your energy." Like, let me give less. Why do I have to give
exactly,
less? Like, why
yeah,
don't you do more? You know, you're not doing enough. Like, I'm
exactly.
not doing too much.
No, that's so real, and I think,
Pisses me
again,
off.
that's, like, a normal I think that's, like, a normal to me, that's, like, a normal relationship boundary, especially if I'm getting to know someone. Like, I shouldn't have to do mental gymnastics and, like, tell you to ask questions or kinda lock in, like, do it or don't do it, like, that's on you, I'm gonna keep moving forward, like, they're anyway, I'm gonna sound cocky and be like, "Oh my god, you're so self-absorbed." But,
I
like
don't think it's self-absorbed. I think it's just like it's self-respect. It's about
yeah,
knowing what you deserve
yeah,
and you know, it's not about you know, it's not about you or it's not about me. It's just about in general just being you know, secure in the
mhm,
fact of being able to look yourself in the mirror and being like I don't fucking deserve this. You know, I
mhm,
deserve more than this and I don't deserve someone here that's not, you know, all about me or interested
yeah,
in me or you know, like it's okay to have that, you know, conversation of I want you to be interested in me. I want you to be here.
mhm,
I want you to be present. And if they're not doing that, what's the point?
yeah. And, like, truly, like, for anybody listening, what we're s like, this really is there's no point, opt out then. I've never, had anyone I've talked to where I've put up with, like, the kind of not asking like, not noticing the small things early on, and it's been gung ho 2, 3 months down the line. It's, like, always it's gonna
It's
yeah,
downhill from
it's
there. Like
downhill.
it's never gonna recover.
Oh my god, yeah. Okay, so I feel like I have a question for you. When have you ever felt like saying no has made you, like, a difficult woman? Like, or, like, what are, like, men's reactions, like, when you kind of set those
Horrible.
boundaries?
Horrible. That is just the one thing that I can say right off the
Yeah.
bat. I think their usual reaction
Mhm.
is to like recoil away because I think it's like men don't get told no, you
Yeah.
know, or like pretty commonly, you know, even like growing up like as like a young boy, I think a lot of boys are taught like, you know, oh like you're the king here, you know, like you're in control, like you're the man, you know, but like
Yeah.
the one they never act like one, so
Yeah.
that's
Yup.
that's irrelevant. But, you know, it's like when you call somebody out, when you say no, or you, like, stand really firm on your boundaries,
Mhm.
I think it really kinda shows them, like, "Oh, I'm being weird," or, "I'm
Yeah.
being kinda mediocre right now by asking these things of you."
Mhm.
And I think instead of being better and instead of saying like instead of being a genuine person and
Yeah.
apologizing and saying, you know, "Hey, I didn't mean to offend you. I really like you. I don't you know, I don't want you to feel that way because I do respect you." I think a lot of men who are emotionally stunted will see it as like a you problem and that's always going to be like they're always going to see it as a you issue instead of
Yeah.
you know, understanding that it's about their own disrespect of your personal boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of men are just going to say, okay, well, that's your problem. If you don't like it, you can go.
Mhm.
Instead of, you know, locking in and being like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I think I came off the wrong way, or, maybe this just doesn't fly with you. It's
Yeah.
always like, I feel like, I'm not gonna say always, but I think a lot of the time it is a situation where, they're like, "Oh, this girl's being difficult. Let me just go talk to somebody who's not gonna,
Not
have
gonna
boundaries with me, or
yeah,
who's not gonna tell
exactly.
me no."
Yeah. I think it's an ego thing a lot for them too. It's almost like, to a degree, I can kind of like, in, like, a childish way, I can kind of relate to it of, like, when someone tells you no and you feel, like, shame and, like, embarrassed, like, you don't like that feeling of, like, being
Yeah.
told, like, what you're doing is wrong. But, like, I did that when I was a kid, like, now I can be like, "Okay, yeah, fair enough," and I feel like a lot of men, like, still have that weird, like, ego thing versus if you just pivoted and, like, kind of stuck to that boundary, they'd make it so much further. And also if they expressed, like, their boundary, I feel like people are really scared in general in dating, like, in our day and age, like, actually communicate. Like, everybody's like matching, like, we're going for like nonchalant for like nonchalant, like, we're matching, like, just be set your fucking boundaries, like, as a man, as a woman, and like let people rise to meet them or not rise to meet them. And if they don't rise to meet them, go somewhere else. It's like so simple. And it baffles me that people end up in like continuous cycles of doing the same thing over and over again, entertaining the same dude over and over again that like isn't that you've expressed to, like, hey, I don't like when you do this. Hey, don't flirt with my friends. Hey, I'd like you to, I don't know, get a job, whatever it is. And I don't like being in that endless cycle. So I think you're much more of a blocker than I am. I'm getting better at the blocking or just like deleting, unfriending without
I mean,
warning,
I
like
think it's
not giving people a heads
necessary.
up.
I think it's there's definitely points where it's necessary because I don't know, like, I guess it depends, right? Because if you can have a respectful conversation with somebody, I
Yeah.
think, by all means, like, try to do that. But if you are expressing boundaries and you're saying no and you're saying like, "Hey, I don't like this all the time," and the other person just straight up, I don't know, I genuinely believe that there's some people that just are not made for you.
Mhm.
The vibes are off, like the
Yeah.
energy's not there. There's no reason to keep these people around.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want a fan looking at my fucking Instagram story for the rest of my life. Like, I really don't. After you fumbled me, like, I don't wanna see you watching my shit.
True.
I don't wanna see you liking my posts. I don't wanna see you, like, reaching out once every 3 months being like, "Hey, how are you
"Hey,
doing?"
how
Like,
you been?
you
You don't
don't
even
deserve
think of
access
me?"
to me. No, fuck no. You don't deserve access to me
Stop.
because it's like, if you like, I don't know, like, it's like, you don't respect me, so why should I sit here and keep you around and, just have you, like, here orbiting around
Yeah.
me at all times for what? Like, let's just release
Yeah.
each other from all of this garbage, and we can just pretend this never happened and move along.
Heavy on the pretend this never I love pretending like that never happened. Like, "What? We don't know each other. I don't
Yeah,
know
like,
about
I
that."
never met this person, I
Sorry to
don't know
that
them,
man.
I've never sorry to this man, I don't know who that is, like, I don't know you.
No. No, 'cause I like that you mentioned the whole that is a good boundary, and it for people that are trying to set boundaries, not just relationship-wise, but friendship-wise, I'm working on it too, but having orbiters, like people that I've fallen out with friendship wise, or again, men that I no longer speak to, they will always be the very first to watch my fucking Instagram story. Or, and sometimes I don't check who watches my story often, but like I do rewatch my own Instagram. Like I'll just be like, damn, dumb. Like, I can't believe you look like this. And I'll rewatch my story over and over again. And like sometimes I'll click in and like the very first person is somebody that I know actively doesn't like me. And I'm like, why? Like, and I think it's been good to kind of remove people like that. I soft block people if I don't want it to be the whole thing. Like I will mute everything on all your socials, and God knows I don't know what you're doing. I could care less. Once I detach from someone, it really is out of sight, out of mind. God knows what you're doing. And I like that. I think it's good. It's healthy for my mental to not be a monitoring spirit for somebody that I don't particularly care for, and not to be like, oh, I wonder if so and so is looking at I just don't. that's a good boundary people should do. It's okay to block people. I know social media is like, don't be soft, you don't need to block people, like, but sometimes it's okay to block people.
But
It's like
it's like,
necessary.
you're not gonna stalk me on my phone that I pay for. I paid for the phone, I pay for the service, like, I understand, I guess, like, "Oh, don't be soft, like, don't block people," but, you know, I don't know. I think the evil eye is real, and I'm not gonna go into that too much, but it's like, I don't want people to just sit there that, you know, if we don't like each other, there's just no point, you know?
Yeah,
I don't wanna watch what you're doing and be a hater. I don't want you to watch what I'm doing and being a hater on it,
yeah.
like, I just don't even want you there at all because it's
Mhm.
like, again, like, I paid for this fucking phone, I
For
pay
this
for the
internet,
phone
yeah.
service, you're not gonna bother me
Yeah.
on shit that I pay for. That's just not gonna happen because it's
No,
like, for
it's
what?
so real. There's only a handful of people, well, I don't think I really blocked, and that's a lie. I blocked a couple of people I've been in romantically involved with, but there are only a handful of, like, women friends that I've blocked, and one of them stalked me, like, was a stalker, and the other 2 are batshit crazy. You know what I mean? Well, actually, 2 of them are batshit
Yeah.
crazy. There's one, she's like a anyway, that's, like, a whole different. You remember that one girl that DM'd me on Instagram? Did I
Oh,
show you those
yeah.
to you?
Yeah. No, you
But, like,
did. That was that was insane. That
just
was
the most
actually
nut
insane.
stuff. So stuff like that, like, I have no tolerance. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but, yeah, I think blocking can be good, especially if, like, somebody's
I mean, it's
actively
about your
they're off.
peace
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
and you
Like,
know what? Go.
it's peaceful. It's
Yeah.
more peaceful. You don't sit there wondering, like, it always made me anxious, like,
Mhm.
"Oh, is this person, like, staring at the shit that I'm doing? Are they
Yeah.
talking about me? Are they,
Yes.
judging me? Are they, wishing, ill
Ill,
intent on
yeah.
me?" Like, I don't want that.
Oh, man, you make me feel so much less crazy because literally I'll do the same thing and be like, "I don't want these people talking about me in their fucking group chat or sending my post," or, like, you know what I mean? Just the weird negative energy I don't need, and honestly, I love the internet. I'm chronically online, but these aren't interactions that people would typically have, if it was 20 years ago. Like, if you didn't like someone, you're not checking up on them in the fucking yellow pages. You just don't know what's going on in their life,
Exactly.
and it's
The
that's how you
yellow
feel.
pages.
No, because, like, you wouldn't know, and I prefer that. And I was just, like, going off on, like, a little tangent, like, kind of transition into, like, boundaries with, friends and family, but I was reading this thing, and, like, one of the 5 regrets of the dying is, like, wishing that they'd had the courage to express their feelings more, and that really is all boundaries are. I feel like expressing yourself is such a good thing for people that have low self-esteem or low confidence. Keep that in mind. That's one of, I think, what I don't know what regret it is. I think it's number 3 or 4 for people that were dying, like, when they asked. But, like, yeah, definitely express yourself. It's good for your mental health. It's good for overall sanity and quality of life, and you can also have boundaries and express those and uphold them within familial, is that a familial, yeah, that's a word, familial.
Yeah.
I can't speak. Between those relationships, so we can kind of talk a little bit about that. I know I've definitely had a lot of friends who have pushed my friends, ex-friends have pushed my boundaries probably further. I'm so much more lenient with my friends because I love more than I like men. I'm just a lot more lenient boundary wise, and I feel like that's where I've been pushed the most. Have you had that? Like, have you had friends that have really tested your boundaries? Do you find that you're more lenient with them versus family?
I mean, in the past,
Mm,
yes. I think where I'm at now, I'm very comfortable with, like,
yeah.
my friends. Like, I'm very comfortable with the people that I've chosen to have around me. But I think it's taken a long time to get here, and especially when I was younger, like, just having people around me that made me uncomfortable, and, like, I mean, it could be, I remember, like, I used to drink a lot, and, like, I think when you're, like, 21, everyone's drinking a lot, and
Mhm.
when I kind of started growing up and not wanting to do that anymore and not wanting to, have, like, fun party time 4 days a week,
Yeah.
you have those people around you that are like, "Oh, you're boring now," or, "Oh, like, why don't you wanna go do this?" or, "Why don't you wanna hang out?" And it's like, I'm I'm trying to get my life together, you know? So there's definitely a point where you have to look at the people around
Mhm.
you and be like, you know, you can't force the people around you to grow up with you. And it's okay to leave people where they want to be. You know, because it's not about them, it's not about your friends, and unfortunately, it's not about your family. Like, your life is your life. You're the one living it.
Yeah.
You are the one that has to, you know, wake up every day and do all of it. So I think that, you know, when it comes to friendships, it's really important to kind of keep your boundaries in place and, you know, the self respect for yourself and, you know, not letting people make you feel bad for making certain choices, whether it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't want to drink anymore, you don't want to go out, or you kind of want to transition your life into like a more adult one. If people aren't meeting you there, you just need to accept the fact that they're just not there, you know, and they might not
Yeah.
be there, and you know, they might not be in the same like life arena as you, and
Yeah.
that's, you know, that's okay.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you just kind of move in a different direction, and that's also fine. That was a good one. I thought that was like a nice, healthy set of boundaries because like when I'm thinking about like friends who've tested my boundaries, it's been like insane. I'm never gonna name names, but I have I tend to attract people that take advantage of me, and I think it's because, well, you can tell me because you also know me well, but I think I love like a fixer upper. I like a certain like personality type, and I tend to attract
Yeah.
more narcissistic people romantically and friendship wise. And I remember one time when I was moving out of New York, actually, it was kind of last minute. You remember how I was before I left. Like I was
Yeah.
losing my mind, and I was moving kind of last minute, and I needed to break my lease. And breaking a lease in New York is like, it's like signing a deal with the devil. It's impossible. And so I lived in this like building, whatever, Stuytown, Town, and it's a little weirder. And I had this friend at the time, and I was like, oh, maybe you can take over my lease, meaning my name wouldn't be on it anymore, and hers would. And we did the application process with her and her roommate. Like we submitted it to the building, and at the time, I think the building had like COVID pricing, so it was rent controlled. It was locked in, and I'd been there for like 2 3 years, so they couldn't raise the rent. So like my apartment, I paid a lot for it. It was like 3,000 something a month, but every other apartment that was my size was like 5 6 grand. And it didn't occur to either of us, but like the building said no to the application because obviously they wanted to relist the apartment for full price. And I remember like kind of breaking the news to her, and I told her several times throughout the process, I was like, always have a backup. Like New York, just it's hard to get an apartment. I'd been through it where I'd almost signed for an apartment and then it fell through, and always just, you have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and then a plan D. And when the building said no, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm out of my lease. I'm sorry you can't get it. I hope, like you have your plan B, and I hope everything works out. And this
Mm.
girl was like, you're a bad friend. You should let me just take it over. She wanted me to keep the lease in my name and then have her just secretly take it over, if that makes sense. So like it would still
That's
legally, I'd be
insane.
liable for everything. And you have to have a guarantor in New York, and you have to make 30 times the rent or something to rent an apartment. And my uncle was my guarantor at the time. And I was like, girl, why would I leave my uncle's credit score and his finances on the table when I don't know if you can pay rent? And not to, again, I'm not naming her name, but she had had issues with paying rent before and like, subleasing her sublease. Like that's how we kind of became friends. She like couldn't pay her rent and randomly hit me up and like stayed with me for like, 2 weeks. And I was just like, knowing all I know, why would I say yes? And it turned into the biggest thing. She gaslit me, like, and I was a people pleaser at the time, so like I felt so bad. I was like, fuck, like I'm leaving her with like no home, but it was such a strong boundary that I had to. There was just no other option. There was no way I was leaving a lease in my name and like moving out of the country.
Oh, because you just you can't do that.
Yeah,
That's
I was just like,
insane.
it was
I think that would be
absurd having
insane.
to explain to an adult why that would not be a possibility. And she got mad, like, we're not friends anymore. And she got mad at me. It was like a whole like fallout. Like, I felt really bad and it was so stressful, but I felt so much better knowing, A, this is the kind of person this girl is. She's somebody that I'd already felt kind of taken advantage of in some ways, but I was like, she's going through a
Mhm.
hard time, whatever. But seeing how she treated me because she couldn't get her way, or force her way into an apartment. You know what? It was just so strange. Like that was a big one for me. And I've had other friendships where I probably could have nipped things in the bud. But yeah, friendship wise, I've definitely had some very extreme, very entitled entitled people that I've had to put. That's why I was like, you probably know better than I do the kinds of people I attract.
Yeah, I think on it I think you're a very forgiving person. I think you're a very, like,
Yeah.
you kind of accept people as they are, and I think sometimes those people come to you very, like, broken and just shitty. Um, so I think that's, like, a really, you know, one of the big ones where it's like, I can see why that happens, you know? I can see why that occurs, but that's not to say that it should happen. I think,
Yeah.
that's definitely not a you problem. That's really just not on you.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I had to I had to figure out, and this will go into kind of family as well, that like I really don't like to hurt people at all. Like I don't want to like ever have to fire someone if I'm a business owner. Like I dread the idea of firing my hypothetical employee that doesn't exist. Like I just never want to like let people down or hurt them. And it was something that I was in therapy, and my therapist and I were talking about it. And she's like, you know, you're gonna get hurt sometimes, like no matter how much you love the other person, or you know, that's a possibility. And sometimes you're gonna hurt people, not because you want to, but because you're human and it's inevitable. And I thought that was such a nice thing to hear because it helped me feel less guilty about saying no. Eventually, I'm probably going to hurt my mom in some way, or my kids, or my closest friends. Like, you know, everybody, it's okay to say no and have that pinch of discomfort or hurt or whatever you want to call it. And it's a part of signing up for intimacy and it's part of the deal. But going forward with the person, if the person's able to move forward and be like, okay, I understand and I respect this boundary, that's so important. And I think that's such a staple of any, like, it's a foundation of a relationship. You and I have had disagreements and we've set boundaries with one another over the years. And it's always been something where I
Yeah.
feel seen and I feel heard. And that's why I adore you. You know, I love you.
Oh,
I would bury a body for you.
that, like, actually hit me like a truck. Like, I was like, "Oh my
No.
god," like, that's, you know,
Yeah. Cause it's
because
just,
I mean, it's true, you
ugh,
know, like, when you care and you love somebody, I
yeah.
mean, you know, it's inevitable. You know, every relationship, I mean, you know, I'm in one, and I think even when it's, like, not family, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's romantic, friends, family, like, you are going to hurt each other, and sometimes it's gonna be in a way that is, you know, I think at times it can feel really devastating in the moment,
Mhm.
but I think when you understand that the person that's standing next to you, regardless of who they are, if it's like, I care about this person and I respect them and they respect
Mhm.
me, there's always a way to kind of meet in the middle and be like,
Yeah.
you know, it's always fixable, you know, and
Mhm.
like you said, like, I think over the years we've had a few times where we've, like, butted heads, you know,
Mhm.
and they were not great times, but I think we always kinda came to a place of mutual respect of being
Yeah.
like, "I was being shitty, and I understand, like, why you did what you did,"
Yeah.
and vice versa, and being able to just say, like, "I understand that you need something that I'm not giving to you right now,
Yeah.
and I love and respect you enough to do that, and to meet you where you need me to meet you." And
No.
I think anyone who's, like, worth being in your life, they will meet you where you need them to meet
Yeah.
you know? And I think it's the same thing. It always goes both ways, you know? And so a lot of conversations, they're hard to have, but they're necessary and you need to have them.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen in any meaningful relationship. And like you said, it's kind of, it's the price of intimacy, you
Mhm.
know? It's one of those things that just kinda comes along with it, and you just gotta take it for what it is.
I agree, and I also feel just from in my last 2 to 3 years of really setting my boundaries and sticking to it, I have lost a good amount of people, but the people that have stuck around and have been able to respect my boundaries and grow and help me define them have been, like, these are friends I'm gonna have for like I'm keeping you around forever, just so you know, just in case you thought
Yeah, no,
you could
like,
leave.
we will be old
Yeah,
together.
we will be we were girls, will like be like a TikTok thing, but no, like we really are
Stop, I'll
locked in.
cry.
Because I think there's something so foundational and, like, built in love in being able to have somebody respect you and understand you even when it's not comfortable, and I think, even with family, and I'm not gonna get into my family too much because it's just not something that I, like, would love to talk about on the podcast, and they're kind of insane, but even with family, I think for so long, that was where my people pleasing first started, and being around them more as an adult has been really great and really jarring in some ways because I'm reliving childhood trauma, but also I've been able to kind of set the boundaries I need to and completely cut people off that I need to, which I think Nigerian culture like that might be alarming because I don't know, you just kind of like tough it out. But for me, it's been the best for my mental health to just not having communication with somebody that disrespects me or speaks down to me and like says like really awful, fucked up things. And I think people struggle with family probably the most because you kind of think they're my family, they're my blood. I can't say this, I can't do that. But even with my mom, it's been a new thing again being around her more at this age and setting my boundary and really sticking to it and letting her know like this is what we need communication wise for our relationship to like work as I continue to grow
Mhm.
into being an adult. And I think boundaries all across the board super important, relationship, friendship, but especially your family boundaries. If you people that are coming from maybe a bit more of a dysfunctional family, please work on that. Like don't sweep it to the side because it's the most uncomfortable one. That's one that you definitely need to figure out for yourself. Sit down, come up with a list, whatever it is, and really stick to it. And maybe, if you have a close friend, consult with a friend, whatever it is you need to do to figure out like how to express that boundary. But that was one thing I wanted to say about the family boundary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard,
Mm,
like, I mean, you know my family.
I
You
do.
kind of understand what's gone on there, and I won't go too much into that here, but, you know, it's not great,
Yeah.
and I think there's been a lot of times where there's just been a lot of expectation,
Mhm.
and a lot of times where, for example, like, with my mom, it's always been, telling me that I'm going to do something instead of
Mhm.
asking.
Yeah.
And I think as I've gotten older, I mean, this is fairly recent, like in the last year or two,
Mhm.
like I really had to like sit her down and be like, you can't do this.
Mhm.
Like I'm not 12 anymore.
Yeah.
You can't tell me what to do and I just do it. I have a life and I have things that I care about and I have things that I want to do. And I think it can kind of come from a place, at least in my perspective, where, I've always been very introverted. I've always been kind of like insulated in my room, like everything that I like
Yeah.
to do, like reading or video games or just kind of hanging out, I like being alone. And I think,
Mhm.
at least in my family, it's always kind of been a situation where it's not seen as, like, a real hobby, because it's like, "Oh, you're not going out and doing this," that's not, like, valid.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely been very freeing for me to talk to my family about it and to talk to my mom and be
Mhm.
like, "Hey, you don't have to think that what I'm doing is important. That doesn't like, what you think is important doesn't change the fact that it's important to me."
Yeah.
And if I wanna sit at home and I wanna stay in my room the entire weekend and I wanna watch movies and I just wanna relax, like, I deserve that.
Yeah.
I'm a grown up. I work. I have college all week. Like, I've earned the right to do nothing if that's what I decide to do.
Yeah.
And so, like, just having to sit there and be like, "Hey, like, you don't get to tell me that these are my plans for the weekend."
Yeah.
You don't get to tell me that I have XYZ to do when, you can ask me like a normal person.
Yeah, I think
And
people
that's
sometimes
sort of like
think
what I've
sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, it's okay. But it's like, I kinda told her like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm never gonna tell you no, but I just wanna feel like you respect me enough to
Yeah.
ask me beforehand."
No, that makes sense. I was just gonna say, I feel like because people think, "Oh, we're family," they can do whatever they want, especially if it's a parent relationship or somebody older than you, maybe not as much siblings, but even with siblings sometimes, like, there's this air of, like, I can do whatever I want because we're related, and that's just not the case, and that's something that more people should realize and, again, set the boundary. It prevents resentment from growing, and I think that probably if people have a lot of familial resentment, it comes from stuff like that because not setting the boundary and not letting if you need to cut somebody off or let it go, it really will drain you. So I think I fully agree. And I have like my own scenarios with my mom or with my other family members where I've just had to really put my foot down and be like, I'm a grown woman. I'm not gonna let you speak to me like this or, like do ABC. It's just not good for me. And if you can't respect that, then it's not a relationship I need to continue. Not with my mom, obviously. I've resolved things with her when we've had issues. But yeah, it's super important. It's like I would say it's the hardest but most necessary boundary to figure out and to set.
I agree. I think it's so hard because I
Mhm.
think with family, a lot of families do think that that bond kind of grants them unconditional acceptance no
Mhm.
matter, what they do, what they say, like what they ask for. And I think a lot of people do still, when it comes to those like family bonds, they do expect, love, support, and forgiveness on their
Yeah.
terms. But I think it's really important to kind of look at the situation as a whole and be like, I don't deserve this. I don't
Mhm.
deserve to be treated like this. And, you know, I feel like it's always important to kind of take yourself out of or family and kind of move yourself into and try to explain like we're both grown-ups
Yeah.
talking to each other right now, and you're talking to me in
Exactly.
a way that's just disrespectful, and you wouldn't talk like this to a friend, you
Somebody
wouldn't talk like
else.
this to a coworker,
Exactly.
so it shouldn't be any different. Obviously, like, I love you, you're my family, I'm
Mhm.
always gonna love you, but that doesn't give you the right to disrespect me,
Yeah.
like, as a person.
No, that's so fundamental, so key, and it's really good to keep that in mind. Again, anybody listening in, what you just said, so key. Keep it in mind. Re-listen to the podcast if you have to just remind yourself of that because I feel like if you've been in a certain thought pattern for a while, it takes a little bit to kind of untrain that behavior and accepting what you shouldn't accept. But I'm gonna segment us into a couple of ways Sandy and I are gonna, I guess, recommend you set boundaries without not without feeling a jerk, but without feeling too badly about it. Just some tips and tricks. Do you wanna go first? Do you want me to go first?
I can go first.
You go first,
I
girl.
mean, I love to say no. I really do.
You
It's like my
do.
favorite word ever. Saying no and saying I don't want to. I think it can be really easy to kind of think that and be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I need a reason." You fucking don't. If you don't want to do something, it's okay to just
Yeah.
say like I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And if they ask why, because I just don't,
Yeah.
like I would rather do anything else. And, I feel like I try to at least explain my side and be like I'm
Mhm.
not being a dick and I'm not being rude.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that. And and honestly, it's like kind of a giving a gift to the other person as well because it's like you should go ask somebody who is like enthusiastic about what you're asking. You should go ask somebody who wants to do this because
Yeah.
even if I do this, whatever you're asking of me, I'm not gonna show up and do a good job because I
Yeah.
don't wanna fucking be I'm not gonna be enthusiastic, I'm
No,
not gonna be happy
exactly.
about it, so I think really just knowing that you can say no without any justification. Like,
Yes.
if you don't want to, you just don't want to,
You have
and you
free
don't have
will.
to.
You have free
Yeah.
will. And I think
Yep.
that's been a big thing for me is I have free will. Like, I really struggled with saying no without justification. Even now, feel the need to over-explain myself sometimes. Like, you'll be like, "Why are you?" It's fine. Like, you don't have to, like, say sorry and go on a whole monologue. You can just say no. So that's a big thing, and it's felt really nice being able to just say no. I wish I did it sooner. I don't even mind if people think I'm rude sometimes. I'm just like, "No, I don't want to." No. I think silence for me is also, like, a boundary. I've had people ask me the same thing over and over and over again, and very often, you're asking me a question and I'm choosing not to respond. I love to yap, I love to talk. Sometimes I'm scared I overshare, but, like, if you're asking me the same question over and over again in different ways and I'm ignoring it, that is a boundary. The answer is it's a silent no, but it's a no. Take the hint, be respectful. I can be a curious cat. I love to ask people questions, but I definitely will take the hint, especially if it's not someone I'm super close to, if they're not wanting to participate and partake in conversation. So yeah, definitely say no. No is a full sentence. I don't want to is a full sentence. And silence is a boundary. You can just not respond to something if it makes you uncomfortable.
I very much agree with everything
Yeah.
you've said. And I mean, I think another good thing is, another good thing to touch on is, if somebody makes you
Mhm.
feel bad for setting a boundary, it's a huge sign that you need to set the boundary, like
Yeah.
kind of just like overlapping on the things that, we've both kind of said over
Mhm.
the entire fucking pod
Mhm.
is, if anybody that is worth being in your life and anybody that is worth your energy and your time, they're not going to make you feel bad for having boundaries. And, you know, I guess it's like if you can look in the mirror and you are accepting of other people's boundaries and it's okay for people to feel hurt. That's, I'm never going to say like people can't feel hurt. It's okay to feel hurt.
Yeah.
There's times where people have had boundaries with me and, we're all human. We're all going to feel, some type of way about it sometimes, but if somebody is genuinely making you feel bad, that's an issue.
Mhm.
And I think there's a big difference between, you setting a boundary and someone saying, "Oh, well come on, why not?" Like that's weird, but if somebody can look at you and say, "That upsets me or that hurts my feelings, but I
Yeah.
understand why you feel that way and I'm going to respect that." I think that
Mhm.
that's super respectful, because again,
Yeah.
like people can be they can be hurt, they can be upset, but they do have to respect you. And if you set a boundary and you have some like whiny, aggressive, like angry person,
Yeah.
you don't deserve that as a person. Like I always try to look at the way that I approach things and I look at some of the situations that I'm in and I'm like, I would never treat you like that.
Yeah.
And if you're
Exactly.
comfortable treating me that way, like I don't want you here.
That's so important. I love that you said that because that's so key. I think it's like an empathy thing, or like is it empathy or compassion? Both, honestly, because I try and put
I think
myself
it's
in
a
the
bit of both.
other people's shoes, and I can't even imagine myself treating people sometimes the way that I get treated, and I think that for me, it helps me define my boundaries, or I'm just like, "Whoa, if I wouldn't do that to myself, like, why am I letting some random person affect me in that way?" So I'm glad you mentioned that one. That was a good one.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important. It's important to put yourself in those shoes and
Yeah.
if someone's treating you in a way that you wouldn't treat them, it's it might be a sign to go.
It is, and also your comfort I don't know if it sounds, like, selfish or bad or what I don't fucking care. Your comfort matters more than other people's opinions, and that's something that I so adamantly believe in. I have minimized my comfort so as not to be seen as selfish or self-centered or self-involved, and it doesn't serve anybody. I feel like it's, like, a thing society tells especially women to do of making your feelings and, like, your comfort smaller in order to be this perfect person. That's not true. That's not the case. Your comfort definitely matters more than other people's opinions. Block somebody if it's self care, remove yourself from a situation if it's self care, and let people think what they want to think. If they think you're a bitch, that's fine. You still have people in your corner that love you and support you and respect you, and those are the people you want in your corner anyways. And I think, you know, for me, in setting my boundaries and in helping me figure out what I want, I created a note list. I actually have this like written down. I love to journal. I love to take little notes. I do it on my notes app in a physical journal. And I wrote down things that I absolutely was saying no to in 2025, relationship wise, work wise, friendship wise. Like, I don't want to overwork. I don't want toxic relationships. If I catch myself falling into a loop of, oh, he hasn't texted me back, I wonder, like, I'll opt out. Like, you're good. Like, you're good, king. And I'll have dudes be like, whoa, like, just because of that, you fell all the way back. Like, fuck yeah. Like, do you know what I look like? Like, why would I put myself through a shitty situation just to prove something? So having a no list that you can refer back to, I think, has helped me a lot. Even just in respecting my own personal boundaries of like, damn, like you said you wanted to do this, 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 this. Cause you know me, like I'll say I want to do all this stuff and then just like put it
Yeah.
off.
I mean,
Fuck you for that.
it's really about just, like,
Yeah.
holding No, because it's like no, there's been times where it's like and I think I tell you
Yeah.
every
No,
time
you
too,
do.
I'm like, "Please stick to your fucking guns, like, enough is enough, lock in, please."
You really
Um,
do.
but I think, I don't think that it's selfish or
Yeah.
self-centered to, feel that your comfort matters more than other people's opinions or their feelings
Yeah.
because, realistically, like we can sit here and say, you have to give grace all day long,
Yeah.
but it's like I know all about giving grace, but you got to start giving yourself the same grace to not
Exactly.
continually put up with the things that you've grown from.
Exactly.
And whether it's like with your friends, your family, your relationships, like if you are constantly lowering your fucking standards for a man or a friend or a family member that's, quote unquote changing, but continually does the things that you don't like over and over again, and, like, it's like at 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 that point, you're growing by yourself and those people are staying the same. Despite you helping them,
Yeah.
in the end, you're just gonna be the one that's drained.
Yeah.
And that's you know,
No bueno.
you don't get anything out of that.
Literally doesn't
So
serve
it's
you.
like, being selfish is not
Yeah.
always a bad thing. I think you have to look at the entire situation and be like, "Okay, like, I need to do what's good for me because if you're not looking out for you, like, not a lot of other people are,
Or
you know?
yeah.
And I think that if you get lucky, you do have those people in your life who are really looking out for your best interest, but you
Yeah.
have the totem pole that's looking at kind of
Exactly.
everything and being like, am I making good choices? Am I doing what's good for me? Because, realistically, you're going to be the number one person in your life that, understands what you need.
Exactly. And you're the one that knows when to unsubscribe from things that aren't exactly adding value to your life. Things, people, places, you know what's best for you. Trust your gut and stick to it. Like you said it perfect. Like nobody else. You came into the world alone. You're leaving alone. Like if you're really, really lucky, you have amazing friends or like partner or like family that helps support you. But like that's not a given. Nobody's gonna take care of you better than you're gonna take care of yourself. So it's important to build those boundaries. In
Exactly.
terms of our final reflections and takeaways, what would you say? Like, what are some of your takeaways you want to give the audience and to anybody that's listened to us yap for how long have we been going? Like an hour?
An hour and 11 minutes officially so
Yeah.
far. We have been going at it. I think a really good takeaway,
Mhm.
at least for me, is, boundaries are not about controlling other people.
Mhm.
Um, they're about protecting your peace.
Yeah.
And if it costs you your peace, then it has to go. Because
Yeah.
I think when you look at life as a whole, there's a lot of things that are out of your control, and it's
Mhm.
like, as grown adults, we all have jobs, we all have lives, we all have a lot of like stressful, things going on, and you don't need there's no requirement for
Yeah.
you to like add more bullshit onto your plate for fucking fun. Like,
Yeah.
just take the moments of peace that you can get, and don't sit there and keep yourself in these situations that, don't serve you and
Yeah.
only add on more onto what is already like a
Already
very
going on.
stressful life.
Yeah, please don't add unnecessary stress. Like we're already going through it. The world is falling apart. You don't need to like add on other people's baggage. I think for me, And this is one that I've learned continuously in the past year. And I've had, again, I'm very, very lucky. I have such amazing friends. And you and a lot of my other friends is, if someone gets mad at you for setting a boundary, they definitely benefited from you not having one. And that's very, very telling. I've had people definitely get upset with me for setting boundaries. And it's been almost like validation that I'm doing the right thing because they have ended up not being friends that I really needed or should have kept around. And I'd say that saying no isn't mean. It's not an unkind, bitchy, whatever word or concept you have in your head. It's none of those things. It's necessary. And as a recovering people pleaser, oh, I sound like such a little psych, like as a recovering people pleaser, but like, no, literally, as a recovering people pleaser, I think the more you kind of welcome the vulnerability of being quote unquote mean and being uncomfortable and saying what you need to say for you, the less afraid you feel the next time you have to do it. And it's really that simple. Like you do it a little bit, the world doesn't fall apart. Like, the sky isn't falling. And the next time you do it, you're like, oh, wow, nothing bad happened. And you just keep going and it gets that much easier to set boundaries across all different boards.
Yeah, I mean, it also just sets the tone,
Hmm.
and it's like, this is not to call anybody out that might be listening. This is not to be mean. So I'm just gonna preface what I'm gonna say by with that. But um, you know,
Yeah.
if you set the tone in any relationship being, you know, spineless and saying yes to everything and constantly pandering to other people,
Yeah.
that's how they see you. That's the expectation you set. That's the image, that is the first image of you that people
Yeah.
get. And if I feel like it makes so much more sense to kind of go
Mhm.
into really any sort of relationship and kind of like show your fucking cards and be like, "Hey, I don't settle for, this and this, and if
Yeah.
you put your cards on the table and they don't like them, they can fuck off," because there's so many people who will look at everything that you are and you putting your foot down, and they're going to be like,
Yeah.
"Wow, like that's somebody who like respects themselves,
Mhm.
and that's somebody who really knows what they want, and that's very
Yeah.
attractive to a lot of people."
Mhm.
And you don't want to sit there and like I just you don't want to sit there and have your first impression be that you're, you know, we're
A
gonna bring this
doormat.
full circle, a doormat. Like you don't want
I
somebody to
promise.
look at you like a doormat.
I'm gonna jump off of something. Yeah, guys, you don't want to be 21 and being called a doormat. Like, please lock in. I'm
Yeah,
I'm giving you
traumatizing.
guys this lesson that I had to suffer through. If it, yeah, don't wait until don't wait until that happens. I beg of you. If it costs you your peace, let it go. Like, just bye, bye. Fully, absolutely not.
Heavy agree. Heavy agree. I just, you know,
I can't believe we came full
really
circle.
if all full circle to being a fucking doormat, but all in all, the simplest way I can say it is lock in.
Yeah,
Lock
guys, lock
in.
in.
It's hard, but it's worth it and it's
Mhm.
good for you and it's ultimately good for the people around you too
Yeah,
because the people who don't know boundaries and don't respect them, they're never going to learn them
nope.
unless you slap them in the face with it. So they either get on board or they stay delusional and they learn anyways 2 years later.
Yeah, on their own without you. And then
Yep.
they'll circle back and be like, "Hey, so like I really miss you. Things
I
have
miss
anyway."
you.
Let me not even go into like
I
a
miss you so
tangent of
much.
the fucking circle back. But thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. It was a little longer, but I think we dropped a lot of nuggets of wisdom. I don't know why am I speaking in like weird, like I talk like an old man. A lot of wisdom. I hope you enjoyed the podcast episode. And, we would both love to know what are some boundaries that you guys have set that have like helped change your life for better or not really for worse, but like, yeah, tell us about some boundaries you've set. Tell us about times people maybe have reacted badly to boundaries you set. Ask us some more questions. Sandra and I will be answering on my Instagram. And I'm trying to think about like my call to action. I don't know, just
I think
set
a good one
boundaries,
is
guys.
just set your boundaries. Set
Yeah.
your boundaries, let us know what you wanna hear,
Mhm.
and, of course, I mean, it's always important to understand that setting your boundaries is really the only way to that you're gonna keep peace in your life,
Yeah.
so if this episode called you out, don't be upset, just be better.
So true, and also, I always wanted to, like, do this on my I don't have a YouTube channel, but I was like, "Hey, guys, welcome back to my" yeah, like the podcast or follow it. Like, "Hey, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe." But yeah, follow it, rate it on Apple Podcast. I don't know, Apple Podcasts? I use Spotify, so, like, Spotify. Follow along on our Instagram, it's What Are You Doing Dumb Pod on Instagram. We also have a TikTok that I don't know how to use yet, but yeah, Instagram's primarily where I post. And big thank you again for listening to Sandra and I yap. We're so happy. Give us feedback. We love that. And yeah, bye guys.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
You're so cute. How do I stop
You're
this?
so cute.